So now that you have at least experienced what the edit window is like, I'd like to again remind you, if you have any other further questions or you're curious about all the other features that this configuration has to offer, just remember, go visit Brendan's website or his YouTube channel, where you downloaded the configuration, and he has like probably documentation or a few tutorial videos that you could totally watch in case you're more curious. Yeah, so this is the edit window. We've already covered this in the previous video. Let's control equals our way to the mix window. By default, the master fader is going to be here on the right, and this is going to be really important. This, in a sense, is technically your volume knob. Now, you don't want to change this, but as a quick fix, if you already set your, let's say you're on a Discord call and you set your volume, but now the mix is so loud while you're working on a call with someone, you could probably turn it down here. Like, that's okay, but it would be ill-advised. You'd want this fader to be at 0 and essentially locked. Like, you never touch this. An alternative is looking right here. You can't see the divider, but there is this one little thin line. If I click this, this would be more correct to touch, right? Everyone's going to reach for the big master fader. This is the send that goes to your headphones or your speakers or whatever. So for my configuration, this is what goes to my aggregate. So I'd actually, if I needed to, I like the master fader is really quick, but taking the time just to click on this send, that'll be a little easier. So speaking of sends, that's what this section here is. This bottom section are sends. So if I click this, this is outputs from my master track. I can change the pan, the width, the fader, like I mentioned before, like how loud it is. So as you can see here, this changes the master fader, but this over here changes the send. You can actually see this gray bar fill up. Reflects that. Over here, this is going to be again left and right. Double click, I can reset that. And then I can also enable automation, all this stuff for this. This is all advanced things. Don't worry too much about that. But as you can see, I can't really change where it goes from here in this window. But if I want to. So if I delete it, and I click it again, I can add new hardware outputs. And now, again, I am using a aggregate. So this is just, that's why there's so many inputs and outputs. So if you need to, you can go ahead and select whatever options you have here based off of your interface or your USB microphone. Okay, depending on what device you're using for your playback. And again, I'm just going to set this up to be my 7 and 8 channels again. I can mute this, put a phase polarity shift on it. Awesome stuff. Okay, so that's send. That's how you can add a new send. Like I can add another one here. 7878, but I can change that. I can put another one that goes to 5 and 6 instead. Awesome stuff. I can delete the ones I don't need. Okay. Above it will be plugins. So here, this is a EQ and this is a limiter. These are third-party plugins. But if I wanted to add one, I can click on the little blank space here and open up this effects dialog window. And then you won't have as many effects. So we're just going to go under Cocos. And then anything that is the JS or even VST, VSTI, whatever shows up here, these are going to be typically the default plugins. All right, so things like, let's see here, like RIA stream, RIA limit, RIA gate, right? These are going to be all the default ones. So let's open up RIA EQ here. Double click it, I can have it open. That's great. Okay, I can also access the effects window by clicking effects over here. Okay, gonna disable the effects by clicking the window to the little button to the right of that. But this right here will show all of the plugins. Now, what's sad is that these plugins right now are actually open up. So I'm just going to close them real quick. And if I open it here instead, you can see I can just easily navigate between each plugin. It will automatically resize. Something I actually really like is essentially this is just your effects rack, right? It's all in the same order. If I want to change the order, I can just drag it up and drag it down. If I don't want a plugin, I can just uncheck it. And the audio will pass through. It's really great. Okay, so that is plugins, adding plugins. Using the plugins, completely different story, but adding them, that's as easy as it gets. And this is just on the master fader. So how about here on the mixing area with all the other faders? They work exactly the same. And I think that's something that people get so hung up on is that they're going to see 100 channels. And they're going to be confused at like whether or not, how the heck do you know what everything does? Well, the cheat is just realizing the pattern. All these channels function the same. So at the very top will be my effects window panel where I can add effects. Right? That is essentially that. That's all you need to know. And if I want to do a different kind of send, it's going to be the stuff that's underneath this white bar. That's where all my sends will be. And that's for every channel. See that? Exactly the same. Disabling it, exactly the same. All these channels, exactly the same. Right? Disable, enable. Over here is going to be a pan knob. This is the exact same pan knob position as this one. And the rest of them. All 100 of these channels. Same function. This width, I'm not going to lie, this is really not necessary for you to know, but you can experiment with it if you'd like. But essentially, this is just to do with the way that it functions within the stereo field. More of a mixing thing rather than it is just like, you're just recording a line. So you're not really going to need to touch these two. But if you had to touch anything, it may just be the left knob. And then your inputs. So I can select my microphone, for instance, right? And then I can hit the arm record button and I can start recording with that. That's great. And then this stuff is more for MIDI. So don't really worry too much about this. It's not really going to apply really for these tutorials. So, and here's your fader for the channel, volume up, volume down in a sense. And then your mute, your solo, your routing. And this routing button opens the exact same dialog window as this. They're exactly the same. Then your phase. And then over here, this is envelopes for anything related to automation, which again, advanced stuff, don't need to really stress too much about that unless you really dive into it. And there you go. That is one channel. And now that you've learned one channel, it works the exact same on every other channel. It's the exact same. And that is, I think, again, where everybody gets so hung up and so scared is that I'm going to see like 100 channels, like, how do I learn how to use it? It's as simple as just learning the one channel. You just need to learn one. Unless it looks any different than the others, they're going to work exactly the same. And a lot of mixers are made this way for that pattern, for simplicity's sake. So now that we know what this strip does, let's say I want to record. Okay, so I put my microphone in. I covered this in the just getting started like Reaper video, but in depth. Right here, this record monitor is playing out of your playback device. So that means if you're using an audio interface with an ASIO driver, that's going to be very low latency when you're at buffer sizes as like low as 64, 128. Some people have reported 256 even being pretty usable. Okay, so that's when you'd want to use this checkbox here. 100%. And if you're going to be doing anything else, let's say we go to wave out, and we're using our USB microphone, right? All that stuff. You could probably experiment with the buffers. The only issue is its stability. So the stability of this driver can vary. So we are just dealing with this latency. this latency of 185 milliseconds is the reason why you hear what sounds like an echo effect. And it's not an echo effect. That's actually just how slow the monitoring is as the audio enters your computer and exits. So if I were to change this to 128, you can see that the latency lowers quite drastically, right? 2 milliseconds is crazy, right? But with it comes, as you can see, a larger buffer will give more stable performance on some systems, right? At the expense of latency. So the more bigger the buffer size for the samples here, the greater the latency. What's also important to realize is if I increase the frequency sample rate, let's change this back to something like 8. It's 21 milliseconds. Now it's 23 milliseconds. See that changes too. So your sample rate changes this as well. So at 96, that's quite fast. Now there's a benefit to recording at such a high sample rate besides the latency. Like you're picking up basically supersonic, like frequencies in the recordings, but it's not necessary because a lot of microphones can't even record up in that range, or if they do, they're very inert, like they're not going to react as fast. And most of the time, if it's not a hardware issue limitation, it's a file size limitation. Like these can get really, really big, really, really fast. But that's the interplay between the sample rate and those buffers, right? Right there is just this. This will increase or decrease the latency. Okay, let's click cancel. So that's that. So if I were to enable this, you're going to hear two of me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my main microphone so you can only hear me in here. Okay. I'm just going to make sure that I have that disabled on my end as well. There we go. Okay. So now I can add effects in real time because I am using a low latency driver. So I can go in here. I can add in my compressor, my EQ, whatever I want to use. And in real time, I can hear those changes happening in real time. I can change what I think sounds bad. I can add what I think sounds good. And then I can also change my compression here, all this stuff for my dynamics to control it, right? I can do all those things now. That is the benefit of a low latency response time and the stability of the driver. Okay, ASIO. So that is why effects, I'd say, are like not really that big of an issue because a majority of you are probably going to be using USB microphones that don't have low latency monitoring capabilities, or even if you have a computer that's beefy enough, it may still have some popping and crackling, like it'll sound like the audio cuts out. That's the artifacting from it not being able to keep up with the speed. So you're going to be doing this not in real time, but after the recording is done. So let's do a recording. If I'm going to record, I just want to make sure that I'm record enabled. And then, of course, I'm just going to make sure I want to start from the very beginning. I click enter, and then I can click Control R and get started. So now I have a audio recording being done here on this track, and I am using these effects. Now you might be worried, I have these effects on and I'm doing the recording. Is that going to affect anything? Luckily for you, no. This won't do anything. So I can listen to the clip as is and get started. So now I have a audio recording being done here on this track, and I can disable these and get started. So now I have a audio recording being done here on this track, and I am using these effects. Now you might be worried. I can enable and disable them by shift clicking on the plugin. If I want to copy it or change the order, I can. As you can see here, just drag and click. But if I want to copy it, I can click Alt and click onto another track. There you go. Just to move. There we go. It's a control click. My apologies. Yeah, there you go. It's getting louder. Yeah, control click, right? And then I can alt click if I want to remove it. Okay, so that is how we can do so much more in Reaper. Audacity used to have destructive editing. I believe now it doesn't because they've been trying to really improve quality of life. But Reaper, out of the box, already had this feature where I can do a dry recording and then I can add effects and change them in real time. And that's what made this super duper useful as like a first DAW, as a free DAW, because that power is phenomenal, right? And as you can hear already, like me using this, I could use this for live streaming. I can also use this for my YouTube videos. I have Reaper running in the background. I hit record. I have these things running. And I can have the audio go into my OBS the way that it is right now. So that is the edit window and the mix window covered. Adding in tracks, adding in effects, doing the sends and all this stuff. I'm going to be covering a few other workflow things in another video. For this, I think is going to be already more than enough. So as soon as you're ready for that, you can move on and learn a few other things about Reaper or DAWs in general and see other kinds of theory at work. But currently, this is just navigating these windows is just a matter of taking the time, you know, learning the channel strips, all that stuff. That's really all you need to worry about, right? That's pretty much all that it goes down to. So in the next video, I'll be covering the sends in a bit more detail and what you can do with these, okay?